I know you've been getting a lot of questions on a recent report that CNN put out a couple days ago. It was, kind of surprisingly decent. The report says that Hamas is reorganizing and regenerating its ranks, despite what Israel's been claiming. Um, of course, the Israeli army rejected CNN's findings. The army told the Times of Israel, quote, "From the intelligence and findings on the ground, most of the Hamas brigades have been dismantled. It is estimated that most of the battalions are at a low level of competency and can no longer function as a military framework." Completely belying what we just saw in your resistance report and all the weeks prior. John, what do you make of CNN's report, and does it tell us anything new? I.e., anything that you haven't been saying already?
Anything that our audience hasn't heard? No, this doesn't bring anything, but it's interesting because they're using, I mean, they call it forensic. We haven't done that. We maybe should start calling it the forensic resistance report.
Let's do it.
But no, they're using primarily Israeli sources. So for Israel to say this is not true when the bulk of the sources for this are the Israeli military, that's where they're getting their information. This is the Institute for the Study of War and the American Enterprise Institute Critical Threats Project. So these are right-wing think tanks, pro-Israel think tanks, giving this data. They weren't crunching the Hamas, the 𝐓𝐡𝐞 and 𝐄𝐥𝐞𝐜 data. They're talking about the data, and they do daily reporting. That it is one of the people that are doing it sort of on a parallel track to what I'm doing, tracking it every day and building a log. That's the underpinning of the work that I do, is that log. And their log is what they shared with CNN. And so the CNN is able to sort of say, like, these battalions are not wiped out based on, you can tell they're not wiped out for the same reason I say, is that when they go back to Tel el-Hawa, you see structured military operations immediately being carried out. When they went into Khan Yunis, it was the same thing. When they went into Shujaiya for the second time, it was legendary, with the guys on the swing being like, we're waiting to come in and destroy your tanks. When they reinvaded Jabalia camp, remember, and they captured a soldier. Where's that soldier? Nobody's admitted to that. The Israelis just pretend like that we didn't see that soldier get dragged down the tunnel in Jabalia. So these battalions are able to reform. They're also not strict numbers. It's not like there's 100. It's not like there's 1,000. A battalion is 1,000 roughly, but that's not all it is. Some of them are 1,600. Some of them are 1,900. Some of them are 800. Some of them have special forces detachments, Nukba forces. You can't just say you killed X number and therefore that battalion is combat ineffective. And calling it combat ineffective means you can't carry out your missions. And I'm still week after week showing 45 minutes of videos of them carrying out their operations. And they show us on video that they planned where this operation was going to come. And I give you detail on that. That is all showing you that they are combat effective. And so this kind of game that Israel's playing, where they're saying, like, we've wiped out the battalions, and now they're trying to play counting games where you, like, they have cards and they cross off the names of people they killed. They cross off the battalions that they made combat ineffective. But the battalions can reform. They reform because they're a military structure that's able to replace their cadre. They have people just like Hezbollah who step in when someone is taken out. But the CNN report still has a lot that I would have disagreed with. They take the Israeli numbers as gospel. They admitted that they just included Mohammed al-Deif as assassinated, and also Marwan Issa, the two top commanders of Qassam, which we don't have any evidence at all that they've been assassinated. They just added it into the story like they are. There's no evidence of that. That is something that Israel is telling us. And for the same reason we were talking about Sinwar, they don't have intelligence on the ground. They don't have assets feeding them information. So they actually have no idea if Dave and Issa are alive. They have no way to check it out, because they don't do battle damage assessment and go into these buildings and do forensics and see if They did raid Shifa Hospital looking for Marwan Issa's body and created a mass grave and dismantled the hospital. But there's no evidence, no evidence for those commanders being killed, just like there's no evidence of the battalions being dismantled, because all information that we have, like in Rafah, for example, that commander that I showed in the video, he was saying this was an operation by this battalion. He listed all the
Right.
4 battalions. So it can't be combat ineffective if they're out there destroying your tanks. Like, that's
Right.
just not how it works, because it's not a guerrilla army. We're still seeing Qassam operate as a national army. And that's something that I've been saying for 10 months that we've been keeping our eyes on, because once you see them move into the stage of guerrilla warfare, then maybe you could look at their battalions and see how they've been impacted. But we're not seeing that.